Welcome to the ideaHUb Innovators Podcast, where we spotlight the innovators and changemakers using entrepreneurship to drive impact and uplift communities. I'm your host, Dr. Letitia Vickery, an educator, researcher, and business strategist passionate about helping entrepreneurs turn vision into reality. In this episode, I'm joined by Frederick Towles, an accountant, author, speaker, and finance coach committed to helping others unlock their full potential. As the founder of the Towles Group Inc, Frederick empowers individuals and small businesses with the tools they need for financial freedom, leadership, and long-term success. He also leads a nonprofit, Unlimited Expectations Incorporated, where he teaches youth about money and entrepreneurship. Get ready for a powerful conversation on building wealth, vision, and purpose. Welcome back to another session of the podcast. Here with me today is
Frederick Towles of the Towles Group Inc.
And we're so excited to hear about your journey. Thank you, Frederick, for joining us today. Why don't we start with the simplest question? How did you get to where you are now? What did it take to develop such a successful company?
Everything starts with education, right? So 4 years of undergrad, 3 years of graduate school, and a bunch of experiences, corporate experience, nonprofit experience. And at some point you realize this is probably not going to go anywhere. And then we decided to launch on our own. I think the thing that helped me to realize that I was a fund accountant for Chase Bank before they merged with JP Morgan, right? And every day I came to work and there's 500 people on the floor and we're literally all doing the same thing, right? The gentleman across the cubicle from me on the other cubicle, he had been there for 20 years. And I'm like, I don't want to do this here for 20 years. He was like in the same position. No offense to him, right? If that's what he wanted to do, that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I said,
so it starts with knowing.
You have to know. You have to know what you want. You have to, right? And then once you know what you want, then you got to develop a plan to get there, right? And be persistent until you get to where you want to be.
All right. So you knew that this particular job was not going to be it. How did you go about developing your plan to take your next steps, to make that leap of faith and jump into starting your own business?
So what I did was I started alerting small business owners that, hey, you know what? I can offer my services to assist. So what ended up happening, I have this classic phrase, 9 to 5 was for the employer, 5 to 9 was for me. So after work, I would always end up at some business owner's business, right? Handling the record keeping and giving advice, etc., in return for compensation, just to kind of test the water. Because the thing is, if you don't know how to swim, the last thing you want to do is jump in on the deep end.
True.
Right? Because that could be your life.
Right.
Right. I don't encourage anybody just to leave their job and all of a sudden just start a business. Go in at 3 feet where you know you can get wet, you can experience it, you can kind of tell how things work.
Learn how to float.
Exactly. Learn the basics. Where if you get in trouble, you know all you have to do is stand up. Right. Because the water is not that deep.
Right.
And then you can venture out after you're comfortable. Then you can venture out on the deep end.
Okay. So you started tapping into some consulting work on your own.
Correct.
Right. When were you strong enough of a swimmer to hit that deep end?
When I realized that some of these small business owners did not want to stay. I was willing to do the work, but they didn't want to stay. They have been in their businesses working or supervising or managing all day. Now they had to stay an extra 2 to 3 hours for me to handle what I had to handle and leave. And they never said, I had maybe 4 clients that I would go to. They never said anything, but you could hear frustration. You could hear stories. And one thing I've learned over the years is that you have to hear what's not being said. You got to read between the lines a little bit. And I realized at that point, it was either we need to go full throttle or we need to just tell these individuals we can no longer service you because it's not fair to them. And that's when I decided, you know what? Let's go. It wasn't, the funny thing is, the position that I was in when I left, they had just given me a raise. So it wasn't like I was disgruntled. They loved me there. So, but sometimes comfort can be deceptive, right? Sometimes it can be deceptive because you can get so comfortable with a routine that you say, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
But easy doesn't always get you to your goal.
That's true. That's true. So being willing to put in that hard work. And then something I really appreciate is putting the client first, not just yourself, right?
Correct.
Because you could have said, well, if you love me, these are the hours. If you appreciate the work I've been doing, these are the hours, take it or leave it. But understanding a future-oriented path, understanding, hey, client needs will matter and will matter first. And it's time to take that leap onto that path.
That's correct.
Awesome. Now, everyone goes through that fear of, all right, I'm leaving this solid, safe position.
Right.
Just got a promotion in it.
Right.
How do you manage that fear of that transition, especially when you're trying to understand, where's my next paycheck going to come from? Is this thing going to actually work out?
Fortunately, even the CFO, when I told him I was leaving, he said, "You sure?" He's like, "Are you absolutely sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sure." The good thing was, this is what I think I had in my favor. At least I believe I did. If it didn't work out, I could probably go back to that same job because I didn't leave. I don't believe in burning bridges, right? I believe that you need to stabilize every bridge,
right? Because
you may have to go across that bridge at some point, right? For one reason or another.
Having multiple routes.
Absolutely. You have to. So I said, well, if this doesn't work, if let's say we go out and swim and we start to sink, well, I'm still in a viable enough position where I can just put my resume in somewhere and get another job. There are skills that are still useful, obviously, right? And there's still a need for this stuff. And I could go back and fall in line with the other 500 people at Chase, right? At this time when I transitioned, I wasn't at Chase. I was at another employer. But there are a bunch of Chases, right? That says, oh, hey, you have the requisite skills to do this. Hey, we have a cubicle for you. No worries. Don't worry. So not getting a paycheck wasn't as difficult as it seems, at least for me, because when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot. So it wasn't like, right, my parents were well off. My parents are working parents. Right. My dad was a union worker. My mom worked at a factory, right? So, shout out to mom and dad for doing what they had to do. So saying that you're not going to have a paycheck next week, I was like, okay. But if they fired me, I wouldn't have one either, right? That's the way I looked at it. If they fired me, I wouldn't have one either. And I would have to do what? Figure something out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to figure something out.
Right. All right. So you started your business, right?
Right.
What are some of the challenges that you faced early on in trying to get the business to grow?
Biggest mistake I think I made, thinking that my family and friends would actually not just support me kind of like, hey, that's a good job, but actually support me and patronize the business. That was probably the biggest mistake, and probably in the beginning because I wasn't aware of how all the dynamics worked, right? When you jump in that pool, you might be navigating the water, but sometimes the water is cold, right? Yeah. So that was the biggest mistake, understanding that sometimes the people closest to you don't support you until what you're actually doing is actually taking flight, which is fine now, right? It wasn't fine at that point. Second challenge was you have this client base. Like I said, I had 3 or 4 clients. Funny story. As soon as I told them I was going full time, I think 3 of the 4 decided we want to go in a different direction, because they were under the impression that the price was going to go up, because now it's full time, right? Now I'm doing this on a regular basis. It's not a side hustle anymore, and that was fine as well, right? Because there's a season to everything. You got to understand that. So I get that. The third challenge in the beginning was attempting to get people to come through the door was lowballing prices. Because as you scale and as your expertise grows, you find a niche that actually, I wouldn't say that there's no competition in, but you find a niche that you actually gravitate to. That means you're going to have to do more things. It's going to cost more, right? So sometimes what ends up happening, if you're at a $300 level, but now you're giving $3,000 service, those are huge jumps that everybody will not graduate with, right? And you have to kind of come to grips with that. Or in the very beginning say, hey, this is the price and that's it, right? So those were I think the 3 largest challenges that I had when we first started everything.
So I hear misalignments, right?
Absolutely.
Misalignments and expectations. Going in, having certain expectations.
Right.
Bumping your toe when you hit those misalignments and trying to readjust. Right. So being very aware of the places where your expectations might not match reality.
Right.
And what you're doing might not match reality. Right. and being open to adjusting and adjusting quickly.
Right.
Right. Because imagine those feelings. How do you deal with those feelings from the friends and family not buying into your services, not tapping into your services and supporting you? Everyone kind of goes through that, but you still need them. You still need to keep those relationships.
Correct.
Can't
burn those bridges.
Exactly. Right. All right. So you went through those challenges, you overcame them, you applied the lessons that you learned.
Right.
Where is your company now? How are you doing?
Well, now we're doing relatively well. Here's how I always put it. Could it be worse? Yes. Could it be better? Yes. That's what kind of keeps me balanced, right? Not to get too high on your victories. I know they always tell us, celebrate your victories, right? And just grieve your losses.
Yeah.
To a degree, I get it. But I prefer to say, listen, these people don't have to patronize your company. There's nobody putting forcing them to patronize you. They're patronizing you because of a number of reasons, right? One, maybe it's because they like the service that they receive, right?
Right.
2, maybe they're comfortable with you. 3, maybe they think, in terms of their business, they found a firm that can scale along with them. There could be a number of reasons why. But at the same time, it could be worse, but it could be better. What is it that you're doing and I ask this question all the time, what is it that we're doing that we can improve on? Because there's always a room for improvement, right? One of the things we do now, we don't want our clients to wait. We used to have a system where they come in and they would wait for us to handle everything. And I was sitting in a doctor's office one day, and my doctor, and I'm like sitting there 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour.
Time to change his doctor.
Sounds like that, right? And then all of a sudden they say, Mr. Towles, the doctor's ready. Okay, so I leave the waiting room and I go into the examination room. 25 minutes, 45 minutes. And then the doctor says, because I hear him in the other room, he says, Mr. Towles, how are you? Mr. Towles is not so happy because we've been here for 2 hours. And my appointment was 2 hours ago and I was here on time. So from that point, I said, you know what? We're no longer going to have our clients wait. If they want to come in, If they have paperwork they can drop off, let them drop everything off, right? Let us handle what we have to handle so they can go do something else, right? Handle their other tasks. And we'll give them a call once it's done. That makes things more efficient, right? And that was a simple thing because I don't like waiting, right? So I don't want to make anybody else wait because time is something we're never going to get back.
True.
We'll lose money, we'll get money back, right? We might lose a relationship, we'll find another relationship, but time never comes back. So could it be worse? Yes. Could it be better? Yes. But you have to ask the right questions and be very honest about your business. What is it that we're not doing to the best of our ability? And once you answer that question, put something in place so that this time next year, you're not asking the question in that area because that area is covered. But there's always going to be some room for improvement.
Right. So this is about taking some control steps and putting in mechanisms by which you can measure your progress on those steps that you begin to implement after you ask the right questions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so on that note, what are the metrics by which you measure the success of your business? And how do you even define success, right? Especially when you're obviously operating on we will constantly evolve.
Right.
So what does success then look like for you, and how do you measure that success?
Retention for us is important, at least for me. Retention to me is important because we don't run a fast food chain, right? Fast food chains, they don't, retention is not really that important. You somebody stops supporting you, somebody else is coming, right? Retention for us is very key. And I like to keep retention, if at all possible, 95, 96%. You're never going to keep everybody, right? People die. People have change of hearts. People decide, I don't want to do this business anymore. They sell the business, whatever have you. Things happen, right? They may have caught you in one of those improvement stages and dislike something that happened, and then they leave. That's honest, right? These things happen in business. They caught you while you were improving. They saw the construction site.
Yes.
They didn't wait for the full project to be finished. They saw the construction site and said, it's dusty, it's dirty. Things are falling all over the place. I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
But I think that's what has to happen. Retention, 95% or above. What else defines success for us is this. It is what people are saying about us when we're not present. So when our phone rings or we get an email and it says, hey, I was referred to you guys by, or hey, I went to this engagement that you were talking about tax planning, or I saw you at an event 2 years ago where you were given some advice, you were speaking. Those types of things say to me that we're doing something right. Because there are 1,000 people probably in my area that do what we do.
Right.
For somebody to pick up the phone or shoot an email and say, hey, or send something via social media to say, hey, we were referred to you by this. Or sometimes when you log on to social media, you're tagged in something. They say, yeah, I'm looking for an accountant. And they either tag the company or tag me. That says to me that we're doing something right. That's success. Eventually in the beginning, that doesn't always turn into dollars and cents. I know in the age we live in, dollars and cents measure success for most people. But those types of things eventually add up.
Right. Especially in your field where trust is such a big thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
If they can't trust you, they're not going to use you. Right?
So let's get into the group part of the Towles Group, right? Because who you bring on to your team matters so much. Absolutely.
I'm really laid back when it comes to leadership. So try to hire competent people. But there is a base rule across the board for everybody. And I even joke about I joked with someone the other day about this. I said, if my mom came to work for me, she would have to follow the same rule. And the rule is simple. If anything that happens in this office, whether it's a conversation with a client, it's paperwork or information from a client, if that ever gets out, instantaneous termination. No questions asked. Because everything we do is confidential. Everything that we do is confidential. We're dealing with very important information for individuals, right? So everything is confidential. So I tell our clients all the time, listen, you can tell us anything. The only thing that will cause us to have to say something is if we're subpoenaed, right? You can tell us whatever, right? I mean, that's because we need the entire picture to give proper advice. You can't give us a part of the picture and expect the correct advice. That's pretty, and being on time, obviously, right? Because you wouldn't have gotten hired unless you were competent.
Right.
So I'm not concerned about competency. We tested that when you came through the door. But confidentiality, because if that's broken, trust is broken. And punctuality, very, very important.
And all of those things go into maintaining a high level of integrity across the board.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could. So, if you Google complaints against companies like Walmart or Apple, there are thousands, probably millions of complaints, right? Because the larger you are, the more opinions you're going to have to field, right? If you Google our company, there are going to be some complaints because, again, some people caught us in our improvement stage. But one thing no one can say is that we're not integrous. That can't be said at all. If it is said, I can almost guarantee there'll be at least 100 people that say, there's no way. There's no way. Because the idea is if we always perform in that manner, people come to understand that, hey, there's no way they did something that wasn't integral, right? That's highly unlikely, right? Even if they don't know the situation, they know us, right? And I think that's very important,
right? So maintaining that strong reputation undergirded by certain key values: integrity, trust, confidence, right? Confidentiality, in particular.
That is correct,
right? And punctuality. Wonderful. All right. So, how do you go about selecting the right people?
Typically, what we do is, if it's on the administrative end, we just want to make sure that they are able to handle all of the administrative tasks, right? We have clients in 24 states right now, right? We only have one office, obviously, here on Long Island, but we have clients in 24 states. So there are days where it could be a little stressful, right? Because you got to figure out a lot of things. You got to be a lot of things to a lot of people, right? Not just myself, but everyone that works there has to be a lot of things to a lot of people. And especially like the on the administrative side, if there was a client that was a little, what's the word here? If they were a little, they had a bad day, let's say it that way. There was a client that had a bad day and they shared their bad day with you over the phone, right? In various ways. The next person didn't do that. So I always say, you got to let that go, right? That was an instance. That was one person. This is round two. This is a second person. They didn't have a bad day. They had a good day. So you can't allow that first person's bad day to bleed into person number two's good day. Right. Because that's not going to be a good situation. Right. On the accounting side, like I said, it's competence. It's competence on the accounting end. And as I was saying to you the other day, sometimes accountants are considered not to have good, what they call bedside manner. You have to have some kind of personality. You don't have to joke around, right? But at the same time, you don't need to be stiff, right, around people. If you're talking to the client, I wouldn't say be yourself, because being yourself may not be the best. Be the best professional version of you at all times. That's the idea. Because again, competency, we check that before you come in. So we're not concerned about that. Now it's more interpersonal skills. How do you react to people? How do you respond? Because that stuff can't get tested until it actually happens. How are you under pressure when there are multiple projects that need to be handled and the deadlines are all around the same time?
Right.
How does that work for you? Or how do you work under pressure? Right. Those things are important. And like I said, there's no test for that until one of those instances happens. And then you kind of sit back and you say, okay. And then, if somebody did that for me, somebody coached me through bad days. Right. It's like, if it's a bad day, you still have to get something done. You can't just pack up your bag and say, I'm done for the day. No, there's still clients that need to be serviced. So you got to figure a way, if that is, hey, I need 15 to 20 minutes to walk down a block and come back. Right. If you want to walk down a block, scream to the top of your voice where nobody's there and walk back, do that. Right. That's very, very important, because how we treat the customer or how we treat our clients, that is a direct reflection on the business overall. Right.
Yeah. So let's switch to talking about the industry, right? The field of accounting.
Gotcha.
Will always be and will always remain an important industry.
Correct.
In the business world, but it's going through some challenges right now.
Yes.
What's your perspective? Let's talk about those challenges, and how do business owners prepare themselves for those challenges?
Okay. So I think one of the biggest challenges, let me preface this first. So it can be seen as a challenge or it can be seen as an opportunity. It really depends on who is looking at the particular thing, right? So I'm a believer is in every challenge, there is an opportunity. But sometimes you got to find the opportunity. It's not present. It's not very ever present, right? You got to look deep and say, this challenge, there has to be a way to leverage this challenge where I can either benefit directly or benefit indirectly. There has to be a way without taking advantage of people, right? So one of the largest challenges in accounting now is artificial intelligence, AI. AI is a challenge probably for every industry at one level or another, right? But for accounting, it's becoming a big issue. And I think the thing is not to look at it as an issue, but find ways to leverage, right? Because it's not going anywhere. It's not like somebody's going to say, this AI stuff, in 5 years, we're not going to do this anymore. No, that's not what they're going to do, right? In 5 years, AI is probably going to be 500% better than it is right now. Maybe even 5,000% better than it is right now. So you got to learn to leverage it and use it to your advantage, right? How do you now utilize these tools to assist people? Yeah, these tools are supposed to be able to do it themselves, but at this point, everything is not able to do it on its own. There still needs to be some level of human intervention, right? That's becoming less and less necessary, but for right now, it is. So if you have business owners that are like, they're maybe, and it's not even about age, if their methodology is kind of an old school methodology, right? They could be 25 years old, but they could still be doing things like the old way. You can kind of help bridge the gap to say, hey, this is going to make things a lot better if you utilize it. And I can show you how to utilize it, right? That's a big challenge. The second challenge, I think, in the industry is when you look across university level, there are not a lot of students graduating with degrees in accounting. You got a lot of finance graduates, right, that take maybe 2 accounting courses. Maybe they get up to intermediate accounting because it's necessary, but not a lot of accounting majors that are graduating from school, which says the industry has a lot of people at the top end on their way out, but not a lot of people that are coming in. So ultimately, we may not be feeling it right at this present time, but soon we're going to feel that there's a shortage in accounting professionals, right, in the country.
Yeah. And why is that? Why is there this declining interest in accounting as a major to go and start pursuing a career?
Accounting is seemed as boring. My opinion, right? And this is what I've heard, because I've taught a little on a collegiate level. And when you listen to some of the students, they're like, yeah, I'm just here. I'm a business major, or I'm a fashion major, or I'm this major. And they said it was business, so you got to have accounting 1 and accounting 2. It's the only reason I'm here. I probably, in a class of 35, if there were 2 accounting majors in there, it was impressive. Most people were majoring in something else and just need to take accounting as an elective. But because many people think accounting is math. There's a little math, but we have calculators, we have computers now, right? So you're not doing math in your head. You don't have to be a brainiac. It's more theory than anything else. Accounting is probably 97% theory, probably 98% theory, 2% math. And sometimes even with theory is, it's not, I guess I can say is, theory is not sexy, right? That's not something people, they only do it if they need it, right? So I think you have to, this is something that's like a calling, right? It's for most people, it's probably more than a career. If you selected accounting, if your dad or mom wasn't an accountant and it didn't run in a family, you probably picked accounting as a major because this is what you felt you were supposed to do, right? It's any other major, I don't think that's the case. Maybe beside one of the medical sciences, right? I don't think that's the case. But nonetheless, there is definitely a lack or a reduction in the number of people coming out of school majoring in accounting.
So how do we turn that into an opportunity?
I think we have to get to some career days. Let people, let students know that accounting can work for you. It can really, really work for you. It has helped me a lot. Seriously, on a number of levels, it's helped me a lot. It's put me in rooms that I probably wouldn't have been in had I decided to do something else, right? Because I was going to be an audio engineer. That's what I was going to do. And somehow, like in junior high school or high school, I said, you know what? This accounting thing, let me give this a try. And I loved it, right? So we got to get in some classrooms and let kids know, like, hey, accounting is great. And don't be stuffy when you go in these classrooms. Let them know that show some personality, because personality is what attracts people to whatever you're talking about. If it's just like, accounting is great, who wants that?
No one.
Yeah.
No one.
Energy attracts energy, right? So you got to have some personality.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to build up the field in that way. Now, what are some resources that you have tapped into as a business owner that have helped you to grow your business?
Number one, personal development. As a business owner, you have to be aware of the word no. You're probably going to hear a lot more no's to your pitches, to your whatever you're offering, than you are going to hear yeses. I'm going to say that one more time, because most business owners don't get this.
Speak to them.
Speak to them. Most business owners don't realize that you're probably going to hear, for every 10 people you encounter, you're probably going to hear 8 no's and probably 2 yeses. But that's fine, because those 2 yeses, those 2 people that say yes, those 2 could be the difference in your business, right? I've seen it. I've seen it in our business where there's this rejection. No, I don't want that. No. I don't really like the way you guys work. I don't like where you work from, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons for no's, right? But personal development, what it does, it alerts you and trains you to have thick skin. That just because they said no, that's not going to ruin the world. That's one person out of 30 billion people in the planet. Like
right.
that one person can't interrupt your day like that.
Right. So tapping into self-help books, resource, YouTube, whatever it is that works for you, that helps you to embrace no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But also still be open to other opportunities coming your way.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then having a vision, right? It also helps with vision. I mean, I remember reading the story of Walt Disney and how every night he would go out and look at a mountain, and they asked him, like, "What are you looking at?" I think it was his grandchildren. It's like, "What are you looking at?" He said, "He's looking at this mountain," and they're like,
"Okay, Grandpa."
Yeah. You really like, we don't see anything out there, but now we see something, right? So and it's not mystical. Sometimes not sometimes, all the time, the concept in your head isn't going to be always seen by others, but you have to make sure that what you're seeing is correct, and then work towards building what it is you're seeing, right? Personal development helps all of that too, because as I said in the beginning, they're going to be a number of times, if you share your vision with people for your business, they're going to be like, "Oh, no, that's not going to work." Why? You know what? Because your cousin, he tried something like that a couple of years ago, and he went broke. His wife left him because they weren't making any money. He lost his house. Okay. This is not like a genetic disorder, right?
Right.
Just because it didn't work for him. Not saying that he's a bad person. Sometimes things just don't work. That's life, right? But you won't know if it doesn't work unless you try it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So personal development, definitely. Books, videos, as you said. Even now, some of the guys that come on social media that give you little 30 seconds, that stuff helps, right? It helps. They don't always tell you their shortcomings, their challenges, but it still helps to continue to, for you to continue to push.
So you said books, right? Yes. We have 2 books that should become a part of your reading list.
It definitely should
Let's
become
talk about
part
those
of
2 books.
Absolutely. First, at the top here, is the small business, what we call the small business toolkit. In there, this is for all the do-it-yourself people. If you want to do your own tax return, you're a business owner, that's fine. It details just about all the deductions that a business can actually write off. It's contained in that book, every single one of them. And then below we have the financial octagon. The idea of the financial octagon is, for a long time, wealth creation was like a secret, right? It was for certain communities. It was a secret. But information is widely available now, and we're still talking about secrets. It's not a secret. There is there are several ways to build wealth. Most of those ways are what I consider mundane. That's why people don't actually execute, because it's some very simple steps that have to be done over and over and over and over again in order to build it. But because those mundane steps are, 1, boring, and 2, and it takes too long, right? Most people don't walk down those paths. The book describes some ways, especially in this country. There's really only 4 ways to generate wealth in this country. And those ways are detailed in that book. Yeah, that's right. I said it. There are 4 ways to generate wealth. Somebody's probably sitting at home and is like, this guy's crazy. There are 4 ways. What you're talking about when you're saying that there's a lot of ways, you're talking about branches. But the overarching themes, there's only 4 overarching themes in terms of wealth creation in this country.
All right.
And those are detailed in the book.
So you're not talking about just any book. These are your books.
These are authored by myself, correct?
Right. So
yes,
now,
ma'am.
as an author, we appreciate that you took that time to put that knowledge out into the world and say, hey, let me share it in these doses that you can take, you can get through relatively quickly and apply it into your own life.
Makes sense.
Right? We need more of that. So essentially unlocking that gate rather than keeping the gate shut.
That is correct. That is correct.
Because you could have been like, well, come pay for these services to get that knowledge. So we appreciate that. So let's support and go out and get these books and listen to them, read them, do what you have to do. Share it with your family and your friends, right? Let's support our co-author, Clearly, I'm speaking into the future. Clearly, okay. I'm saying we're going to write one together.
Well, I guess we're writing one together. All right. 2025.
Right. Let's support our authors and our fellow business owners. Now, with that, what kind of legacy do you want to have?
Legacy is very important. Mm-hmm. I think for me personally, what I'd like to see, what I'd like to say is this in regarding legacy. If you're not missed, then maybe you missed something. Right? Somebody beside your family and your loved ones should miss you, because that's to me, that determines how much impact you have.
Right.
Right? I'm not saying that everybody's going to say at the funeral, oh my God, I'm not talking about that, because everybody's going to be emotional more than likely at the funeral. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about impact on another life. Somebody will say, man, I wish this person was here, because if they were here, I could run this past them. I could talk to them about this, right? To me, that dictates your legacy. That means there was an impact made on earth, right? Again, everything is, I know I'm in finance, but everything is in dollars and cents. That's right. It's kind of oxymoron, but it's everything's not dollars and cents.
Yeah.
I think how you impact other people, how you made them feel, what you offered, those things go a long way. Even longer than the money that you generate from providing services. So in your providing of the services, what kinds of partners are you looking for, type of clientele you want to work with, where you're going, where you see the business going in the future? And take a second to list out your services so we know. Awesome. So here's what I'll start at the service piece, and then we'll go into the clients. Here's what we offer. We offer, obviously, the Towles Group Inc. is an accounting firm. So we offer tax planning, we offer tax prep, and that's personal, individual, and business, along with the information return for nonprofit organizations, right? We also offer business consulting, and virtual CFO services. So many small businesses, they know how to work their business, right? And when we say small business dictated in the U.S. is any company $2 million and below in revenue, right? In annual revenue, $2 million. Not so small. Not so small, right? Small, but not so small, right? So the idea there is, because they may just know how to maneuver their business, offer the product and or the service, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made, especially if a company is looking to scale. And many of those decisions are connected to finance, right? Not just what's in the checkbook, not just what's in the bank account, right? But so that virtual CFO services, we come alongside a small business and provide trusted financial service so that they can make decisions, and we help them in those decision-making processes, right? I think that's very important. That's why I spend a little bit more time with it. And then we also, we coach with this wealth management, this wealth creation. We coach that stuff because I realize, based on my background, you can come from literally nothing. Everybody's not going to be a rapper. Everybody's not going to be an athlete. For some, yes. But the majority of us, we're not going to be entertainers or athletes. So we're not going to be able to make the money that way. Most of us are going to have to figure out how to generate wealth without being the next LeBron James or the next 50 Cent, right? We're going to have to figure it out. We help with that. We help them figure it out. So those are the services that we offer. In terms of what we're looking for in terms of clients, clients that are looking to go somewhere, right? The clients that have a vision. If they have a business now, give you a wonderful story. One of the clients, business clients that we've had the longest, when he first came to us, his company wasn't making any money at all. For a number of reasons, none of them I can disclose. But now that company they're almost out of that small business range.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And probably in 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
Right? So he saw us as a point where we could scale along with him, right? With his company. And we've done that at every growth stage, from 0 to where he is now, and hopefully where he's going in the future. Right.
Wonderful.
So those are the kind of companies we want to work with. They may be small now, but the idea is they don't think they're going to stay there. They want to go up. Or if you're already a company, you're already doing business, making or generating quality revenue, but you say, you know what, I don't think either my accountant is doing something right, or I'm doing everything, right? Because most people fall in that category. I'm doing everything, and I need to get this off my plate so that we can actually scale. Those are the companies that we really want to work with, because they already have a focus of where they want to go, right? And of course, if you're a company that is not in that category, you're saying, hey, you're waving the small business flag. You're saying, hey, I got a small business and I need some assistance. Well, maybe that would be something that we would do in terms of coaching, right? Coaching to get you to the point where now you're one of those thriving businesses.
All right.
Yeah.
How can people find you?
Good question. You can find us on the World Wide Web, www. I'm going to say this slow. The Towles Group Inc.com. That's TheTowles Group GROUP.INC.com. You can also find us on social media under that same moniker, Instagram, Facebook, and then obviously you can always give us a call. Telephone number 516-522-2676. We're based here in Uniondale. We just don't take walk-ins, it's appointment only.
Mr. Frederick Towles, thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation. We appreciate everything you brought and shared with our audience, and we are looking forward to being in this journey as you continue to grow and continue to serve.
Awesome. Listen, thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
See you on the next episode.